Hi, and welcome to another episode of Danny Brown Talks Phoenix. Today I am joined by Tacey Clayton, the CEO of CASA Academy, which is a charter school located here in Phoenix. Thank you so much for joining us today, Tacey.
Of course.
Really appreciate it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about CASA Academy?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm originally from Maine, and I moved to Phoenix several years ago in 2008 with the Teach for America program. I was a core member for 2 years. During that time, I taught in a school in South Phoenix. We served primarily a Title I population, so we were working with students who were very low income, and I was just aghast, to be honest, at the skill deficit for those students who were entering my classroom. And so from there, after teaching for those 2 years, I went on to teach for another 3 years in a couple of other schools in the area. And
was that part of the public school system?
Yes, they were all part of the public school system. And so from there, I also went on to earn my degree in administration and supervision and was recruited into an Aspiring Leaders Fellowship through the Arizona Charter Schools Association. And through that fellowship, we had the opportunity to visit highly performing charter schools in 3 different cities. And during that program, I honestly had no idea what a charter school even was. And so visiting the first charter school in Denver, it was absolutely a jaw-dropping experience because every staff member was literally on the same page, same high expectations, very rigorous academics for those students. And I really wanted to bring that type of model back here to Phoenix because it wasn't something I had experienced at that point in time.
So for our audience, what is a charter school? What's the difference between a charter school and a public school?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or even a private school for that matter.
Yeah, so there are 2 types of public schools. So there's charter schools and then there's public district schools. And so the difference is we're chartered through the Arizona State Board for Charters. And so a district school, on the contrary, has a district centralized office and then has a variety of different school sites. So typically all of those school sites are then reporting up to the district office and there's a superintendent to manage everything. So we talk about CASA as a charter school as being a publicly funded but privately operated entity. And we're still a nonprofit, but we essentially have a little bit more autonomy to make decisions pretty quickly to meet the needs of our students.
So does that mean less oversight from like the government?
Yes and no. So we're still definitely held accountable by the Arizona Department of Education, the Arizona State Board for Charters. So there's certain expectations that we have to uphold, of course. But what it does mean is that we have more autonomy to create systems that work best for us and for our families, and most importantly for our scholars, of course.
So what kind of differentiates you then is in public school systems, or the district schools rather, they have to follow like a certain set of guidelines regardless of what maybe the parents or even the teachers want to do. And in the charter world, you're able to maybe pivot or create your own systems that help the students along that maybe they have, because I've seen charter schools that have specialties in, say, like the humanities or in the arts or math and science. Is that kind of a good I can't talk right now. Is that a good way to differentiate between district schools and charter schools then?
I would definitely say so, given that we also, of course, need to meet the academic standards and that kind of thing. But I do think as a charter school, we have the opportunity to focus more on a specialty. And ours, we really focus on serving the primary grade levels because we want to close that achievement gap early on. And then in addition to that, we're college prep.
Okay.
So, which some people laugh at when we say we're kindergarten through 2nd grade and we're college prep, but it's true. We call our students scholars because we want to drive home that mentality of you are going to be a college scholar one day, even if you're a kindergartner now. And every class in our school is named after a college. They have a college chant that they get really excited about saying every day.
That's fun.
Yeah, so I would say our specialty is really being college prep, high rigor academics, but definitely a lot of other charter schools choose different focuses like arts or STEM, those types of things as well.
And how did you come to the conclusion that that's what you wanted your focus or your niche to be?
Yeah, definitely. I think ever since starting my work with the low-income population, it has just been very near and dear to my heart to work with students who really need the most support and the most help, because for whatever reason, they may not be getting that extra support at home. And so to me, getting our students on the path to college, getting them advanced so that they're well above grade level is the end-all be-all, and certainly opens up the doors to them when they graduate from CASA in second grade, move on to another school, then they will have more opportunities because they are on grade level in reading and math.
So what does the typical scholar look like when they come to CASA?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So definitely, I would say many of our kindergartners entering our doors don't know some of the basic skills that you would assume they would, or that their more affluent peers might have. So such as coming in, they don't know how to hold a pencil. Like there's a certain tripod grip that you're supposed to use. They don't know how to do it. They're maybe trying to grip it like a crayon. They also might not know what does the number 1 mean. So we have to like practice physically, like here is a cube, this is 1 cube. So learning basic quantities and things like that. And then also knowing the names and sounds of the letters so that they can start that process of learning how to blend together words.
And so kids of more of an affluent background, when are they learning these things?
Yeah, so definitely I would say from, most of them from the time that they're born. If you have parents at home who know that they should be reading to you on a nightly basis, that skill typically tends to develop much earlier on. I mean, my sister has, she has a 2-year-old. She's reading with him every night. He knows how to turn the pages. Some of those basic skills, a lot of our scholars' parents maybe don't know to read with them at night, or maybe don't have time to read with them at night when they're younger, and so they come to school not knowing how to turn the page gently and those types of skills.
I would imagine that a lot of your scholars then maybe come from broken homes or homes where the parent is working 2 or 3 jobs to try and provide, and maybe doesn't have the, like you said, the time to spend teaching them those things?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously our scholars come in with a variety of experiences, a variety of backgrounds, and I think definitely like their parents love them and care about them so much.
Sure.
But sometimes it really is a matter of when you're trying to live, when you're trying to survive and get food on the table, you don't have time. You're out working 2, 3 jobs. You don't have time to sit there and read a book with your child. Whereas, if you're a more affluent person, you have a little bit more money, you have the luxury of maybe that time or that knowledge.
Mm-hmm. And how many scholars do you have at CASA right now?
Yeah, so we are projecting to have about 198 this year. That will probably drop to around 175 as we do work with a very transient population. So they tend to, we lose approximately 5% over the course of a year.
Wow. Now what leads to kids leaving the school?
Yeah, a lot. So a lot of them are not because they're unhappy with anything that we're doing. A lot of it is simply they're moving out of state or they're moving to another part of Arizona. A lot of it does have to do with housing or changing jobs or losing jobs, that kind of thing.
How do you go about finding scholars?
Yeah, so we have a really great recruitment program, and our method is really to go door to door, and that's what we've done since day one. So we actually go out, we knock on doors, we target certain apartment complexes. A lot of them serve refugees or lower income populations, and so we'll go to those complexes, we'll go door to door, we'll tell them about CASA and the type of education we provide. We'll try to get them to come in and take a tour or to fill out an application packet with them there. But something that we really push and strive for is building those relationships, strong relationships with families from day one so that they feel comfortable to call us with any type of question, that kind of thing.
Does the school cost any money for the families to have their kids come here?
We are completely free. So we do get public per pupil funding from the state of Arizona as any other public school would, charter or district. And we do a lot of fundraising on top of that because we do have a deficit in our budget because of the kindergarten program that we serve. Arizona Department of Education will only fund half-day kindergarten at this point in time, and we believe, obviously, with some of the deficits, skill deficits that our students are coming in with, we need that full day to catch them up so they know their numbers, their letters, they start reading, they can write paragraphs, that kind of thing. And so for that reason, we do a lot of fundraising to help with the deficit we have in our budget because of the kinder funding.
That's really interesting. So it sounds like you ask a lot, I would imagine, of the teachers here.
We do ask a lot of our teachers, and I have to say we have the best teachers in the world here at CASA Academy. I know a lot of people probably say that, but I actually mean it. We do ask a lot of our teachers. That said, we try to do everything we can to make CASA the best place possible for them to work. Something unique about us is that we've done a lot of work with our company culture. We actually have a committee of our board that focuses on company culture, and we ask our staff to rate our culture as a whole. Every week we talk about owning our culture. We do staff roundtables where our teachers are able to provide feedback to an outside facilitator who comes in and runs them. And through that, we then take that feedback and we run with it. So starting this school year, we've made a lot of schedule changes and a lot of changes to how we're communicating with parents just based on feedback from our teachers.
So it sounds like you're running this as a business. And what I found, in running my own business is that culture is incredibly important. And if you can create a great culture where people are buying into your overall vision, that some of the stuff doesn't matter as much, in terms of benefits that you offer or some of the challenges that you guys face in terms of support from the state.
Yeah, definitely. I think people wake up, they want to come to a place that makes them feel happy. And so, maybe not every day is roses and sunshine and all of that, but we do everything that we can to make this a really joyful place for our staff, because especially working with such young students, of course,
Sure.
How the teacher's acting is then going to, play into how students are acting and that type of thing. We want to create a very positive, warm, welcoming environment.
Sounds like you're doing that. So how do you find teachers to fit your culture?
Yeah.
Especially in Arizona, where there's a teacher shortage, if I'm not mistaken.
You are absolutely correct. There is definitely a teacher shortage. So fortunately, moving into this upcoming year, we start school in just a couple days here, and 92% of our staff are actually returning this year. So we only have one new teacher who's coming in, and we recruited her actually through LinkedIn,
Oh, wow.
and she's moving here from out of state. So I would also add, a lot of the recruitment efforts that we make are candidates who end up coming to us from out of state, from New York, from Illinois, from other states.
That's interesting that you're able to convince people to move to Phoenix, where education is not at the forefront,
right?
Unfortunately, and that has to be a testament to the culture that you've created and the environment here.
Yeah, definitely. I think early on in the interview process, we try to get any candidates who we are heavily considering to link up with one of our existing staff members. We actually have had people who are out of state who then became a staff member here fly out to see the campus, to tour, to meet people. And I think that says it says so much to actually be there, to be immersed in the culture, to get to talk to a teacher like, hey, what is this actually like to teach here? See the kids, of course, the most important
huge,
part.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So how did you decide to focus, or why did you decide to focus on kindergarten through second grade?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I would say on average nationally, by the time low-income students get to third grade, they're statistically already 2 years below grade level, which is a huge gap.
Yeah.
And so we know how far behind our students are coming into us. And so for that reason, we really want to focus on the primary grades, accelerating them for their education so that they're then prepared to move forward into whatever it is that they choose to do after.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of programs focus on kids when they're in high school, but I would argue that by the time they get to high school, they're probably so far behind that getting them caught up at that point is near impossible.
I think it's definitely much harder at that point.
Yeah. Tell me more about kind of the funding process and how do you guys raise money to make up that deficit for going full day with those kindergartners?
Yeah, that's a great question. So every year we have an annual event, which is essentially a big party where we talk about CASA, we put together a video, we have scholar speeches and staff testimonials, and people have a really great opportunity to not only enjoy a kind of a gala, I wouldn't say a gala, but like a cocktail type party,
Sure.
while also doing something really great for our students and learning about CASA. And through that annual event, we've been able to raise approximately $70,000
Wow.
each year. And we just had our third event this past year and are looking forward to our fourth one coming up.
When is your event?
Our annual event is in February each year, and this year it'll be towards the end of February.
And if somebody was interested in donating to your cause, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, definitely. So you can just visit our website, casaacademy.org, and there is a donate button right on the home screen. So it should be nice and easy. Yeah.
Now, do people get tax write-offs for donating to CASA?
They definitely do. We have our 401c3 status, so we are a nonprofit. So we actually will send out a nice little tax receipt with a package to every donor.
Very cool.
We really
Very cool.
appreciate donations.
Yeah. Well, it sounds
As
like
I'm
it.
sure you can imagine.
Yeah. I mean,
and our scholars do too.
Having to make up, all that education has to be super challenging. And if you had to do it on a restricted timeline, I think that would make it even harder.
Definitely.
So having them go a full day, I think, is just super important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what is a typical day in the life of a CASA Academy scholar look like?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different components to it, but I would say they start out the day by being greeted by 3 different adults before they even make it to their classroom, and that's because we believe so much in building relationships with our scholars. So I, as one of the members of the administrative team, stand outside every morning, we shake their hands, we ask them, why are you here today? And they say, I'm here to climb the mountain to college.
Wow.
It really sets the tone and the purpose for their day.
It's got to be super cute, too, to hear them say that.
It is pretty adorable. You should come check it out sometime. And so after that, they did go through a uniform check. They head to their classroom. Homework is checked. They have the opportunity to have breakfast in the classroom. Many of our students participate in the National School Lunch and Breakfast program, so they do have free breakfast in the classroom.
Sorry, what's a National School Lunch program?
Yeah, so the National School Lunch program is a program that provides free and reduced price lunches to students who qualify for them. So because 98% of our students do qualify for free and reduced price lunch, obviously 98% are participating in that program.
Sure.
It's a great program.
So with you operating in kind of a lower income area, I imagine that is language a barrier for your teachers, with us being a border state? And I have to imagine a lot of your kids speak Spanish.
A lot of our children do speak Spanish, 72% actually, and so it certainly could be a barrier, but we don't let it be a barrier. So definitely a lot of our staff do speak Spanish fluently, which is wonderful, very helpful. And so we always talk about how there is always translation available. A lot of our teachers who don't speak Spanish use Google Translate to send notes or to send text, that kind of thing. And then if, in the case they want to make a phone call or have an in-person meeting, we of course arrange translation for them.
So you arrange, if you have to communicate with the scholar's parents, then you can arrange translation?
We can, absolutely.
And how do you build strong relationships with the parents? I bet that has to be a challenge in its own right.
Yeah, so it's something that we, again, have really, I would say, systematized here because we believe it's so critical to the student's success in the classroom. And so there's a variety of different things we do. Couple things we're doing this year. One of them is parent-teacher conferences, so just traditional conferences, opportunity to have that one-on-one connection with the parent and the teacher together and talk about the scholar. But a more innovative thing that we're doing is we also have academic parent-teacher team meetings, and our teachers run those, and it's an opportunity. Each one is based on the reading level of the child, and so the parents come in and they get to learn about and practice the skills that their child needs to be successful.
Wow.
So at some of the lower step levels, which is our reading program, scholars they need to know how to rhyme words, and so we play something called the rhyming game, and so there's little motions that go along with it, and teachers will actually show parents, like, this is how you play the game, this is the point of this is why it's important, and then they actually walk away with a packet of information based on the step level, again, that they can take home and use with their child.
Wow. So, you really are running this as a business. I don't think I've ever thought of a school as a business, but you're talking about setting up systems. I imagine you've got some sort of CRM that you're using, like a client database to stay in contact with everyone. You're creating a really vibrant culture here, so you really are running this as a business.
We definitely are. I think, and going back to your question about how is a charter school different from a district school, I think that is one piece of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not just a school, like we are also a business. We are also developing those processes and evolving and learning how we can become better and better.
You have to run efficiently. Like there's
Yes.
no excess weight or expenses that you guys can really afford to take on, where I think
Right.
district schools are super bloated, right? I mean, they're very heavy in terms of the amount of oversight and staffing and superintendents involved, where you guys don't necessarily have that.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, obviously, with a bigger district, you have a lot more staff for sure, and we do have to run things very, very bare bones here, or
Almost
as bare
like a
bones as
startup.
we can get. Yeah, and I mean, and 4 years ago we were a startup,
Yeah.
so it was very much like, oh, we need a building and we need to make sure it's up to code, and all of those things.
The challenges that you don't even think about.
You wouldn't think about it, if you're in a district and it's just like, well, this is the school. This has been the school for years and years and years.
Right.
So definitely.
So how did you choose, I mean, you talk about building, how did you choose this location?
Yeah, so we actually had the fortunate experience of being connected with Shepherd of the Valley Lutheran Church pretty early on in our process through one of the connections we had. And we were able to start conversations with them. This property was currently available, and they were looking for a school that had, that gave back to the community in the way that we do, to occupy this space. So everything kind of moved forward from there.
Wow. Do you guys offer any extracurricular activities for the scholars to, like on a voluntary basis, that they can participate in to help get caught up?
Yeah, so we actually have an after-school program every day, which goes until 5 p.m. We dismiss at 3:20, but so for that extra hour and a half, students, a lot of parents actually will choose to enroll their students in those programs, or in that program, to get that extra help with math and with reading. One of the really great things is that we have the National the National Charity League comes in, and they send volunteers who come in. They'll read with the scholars, they'll play games with them, they'll help them with their homework. So it really becomes a rigorous experience for our scholars, and they really look forward to that one-on-one attention with a volunteer.
Wow. So what are some of the common barriers that you see in the classroom and kind of in education overall?
Yeah, so definitely, I know we've talked about this already, but the funding here in Arizona, despite the increased funding this past year, it unfortunately doesn't come out to as much as we would like it to be.
It sounds like a lot, but when they broke it down per teacher, it was hardly anything, right?
Right. So it's unfortunate. We were able to give our teachers an average 11.6% raise this year, which is really great.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of other schools and districts were not able to do that. So we, of course, prioritized using that money to go directly to our teachers' salaries. What was the other part of your question?
Just some common barriers in education that
Yes.
that you guys face.
Yeah, so I think another really big challenge for us this past year in particular, and I'm not sure why yet, we're still kind of trying to figure out why, but was attendance. So our overall attendance was a lot lower. Now, certainly, obviously, a lot of that comes from illness.
Sure.
But we also had a lot of students who would be absent for weeks and weeks throughout the school year. And when you're not here, you can't be learning, and so it makes it much harder for us to do our job of getting students caught up.
So if a scholar is missing that much time, and you have certain requirements that you have to meet to try and get the scholar caught up, what challenges, or who is looking at that to kind of keep you honest and make sure that the scholars are reaching their full potential and you're following through with your commitments to get them caught up?
Yeah, so we're definitely, as I mentioned before, accountable to the State Board for Charter Schools. So
they have like systems, the State Board for Charter Schools?
They have a lot of systems in place
sure.
to hold us academically, financially, operationally accountable, definitely.
Now, do they allow, like if a student or if a scholar does miss several weeks per year, do they allow like outliers?
Yeah, so I'm not sure.
Like, because I imagine if a scholar misses several weeks of classes, they're not going to get caught up to the point that they should, because that's a lot of time to miss.
Right.
So does the state board give you some sort of wiggle room in terms of certain scholars not making the goals that you guys have set for yourself?
So I would say in terms of, so standardized testing starts in 3rd grade, and so obviously we're not currently serving 3rd grade.
Okay.
But essentially any scholar who's not enrolled within the first 10 days of school, or who comes to the school later, well, I guess that would be the same thing, comes
Sure.
to the school later in the year, they're not, their data will not be represented on the end of the year assessment
data. So they do allow for some of that.
So they're, yeah, definitely. I mean, I certainly don't think anybody is, I think there's a lot of understanding and empathy, but at the same time, like for us, it's about how can we make sure that you're getting up, that you're bringing your child, that you're putting your child on the bus, like how can we work with you and partner with you to make sure your child's coming to school. And so we've tried a lot of different things. We give them like a perfect attendance stamp if they come to school every day that week. They win a certificate at our school-wide community meeting if they show up every day that month. We try to do a lot of fun events, especially towards the end of the year, to make sure that they're still engaged and still want to come to school. So we had a career day as an example. We had,
fun.
Yeah, super, I mean, and really cool, very mission aligned too. So they got to hear about, what is it like to be a doctor or an attorney or, an engineer, all of these different professions, which is really cool. And, I don't know that a lot of our scholars know a lawyer for sure. So, it was a great opportunity. We also have, we have Recyclosaurus come in and teach them about recycling. The Phoenix Opera came last year. So we try to do a lot of things to really enrich their lives, but also going back to that attendance to really try, to try everything to get them to come.
So I've seen that you, through Facebook, and for those of you that don't know, I'm on the board of CASA. You partner a lot with some of the professional sports teams here in Phoenix. What's that relationship like, and what do they do for the scholars?
Yeah, we do. We built a really great relationship over the past several years with the Diamondbacks and the Arizona Cardinals as well. And we've been able to actually acquire a significant amount of grant money. They run grants for about $5,000 each year, and we've been able to obtain those three Diamondbacks grants at this point and 3 Cardinals grants. So a significant amount of money to help us do everything from building a fence to make sure that our property is secure, to providing books for our classrooms so that our scholars are able to listen to books on tape and that kind of thing. Wow,
that's really fantastic. So you must be doing something right if you have to continually apply for these grants and you're continually getting them.
Yeah, and hopefully that continues.
Yeah, right? Well, it sounds like you're doing fantastic work. So, not to get all political and stuff, but what do you see Arizona as a state needing to do to improve just education across the board? Because I think we're consistently ranked 48 out of 50 states in terms of the level of education. So what kind of changes would you like to see if you were running Arizona's education system to help kind of improve things?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big start is Governor Ducey's new budget that he released. But certainly, as we've talked about, when you divide that out by the number of schools and the number of teachers and all of that, it doesn't come out to enough still. So I really think it's about not just giving a little bit more in funding, but it's, we truly do, I think as a community, as a state, need to really step up and say, hey, we want to provide more for our students, and we know it's going to take a lot more money than just the 20 by 2020.
Why is it that, kids in more affluent areas, the schools seem to be better, even if they're within the same city? So the city of Phoenix is huge, and city of Phoenix has its affluent areas and it has its lower income areas. And I know this is kind of getting more into district schools, which might be outside of your area of expertise, but it seems to me that if everybody's paying taxes, that it should go into a fund, and if they're public schools, the level of education, whether you're rich or poor, should just be the same. So why is it not? I mean, do you know why it's not that way?
I wish I had the answer to that. I mean, I do think it comes down to, I think some of it comes down to property taxes from what I do know. So like,
Yeah,
you know, if you're,
absolutely.
right, so if you're in a place that has more property taxes, like more of that's going to go to education, whereas, you know, if you're in a low income area, most people are renting, that kind of
But
thing.
don't you think that just continues the problem? Like,
Oh, I completely disagree with that,
Yeah.
but I do think that's how it is
Yeah.
currently.
and
It does perpetuate the problem for sure.
yeah, I mean, you know, poorer areas have lower property taxes, and the property taxes are what goes to fund the schools.
Mm-hmm.
You know, more affluent areas have higher property taxes, and so those schools have better stuff than the poorer schools, and they're in the same city. It just
Right.
doesn't make it.
Right.
I mean, it blows my mind. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Me too.
I don't understand it. So, you know, kind of to sum this all up and kind of wrap everything up, as the CEO of a school that looks for, you know, the public to help out and helps get funding a little bit from the state, what are some of your asks of our audience?
I mean, I would just say support education in every way that you can. You know, whether that's, everybody can help in different ways, right? Like maybe you can volunteer, maybe you can do a supply drive. We love it when people do that kind of thing for us. Maybe you can offer a more significant financial contribution. Whatever way you can help, go out there and help your local schools, whether it's CASA Academy or another school that's in your area.
When you say supply drives, you mean just like stuff, like pencils and, you know, erasers and paper and books and...
Yes, so basic school supplies. So our goal every year is to try to get all of our supplies for the entire school donated. Something that's really important to us is that our teachers are not paying for anything out of their pocket. And I know when I was a teacher, I was paying thousands of dollars to buy basic supplies like pencils and paper and whiteboard markers and things like that.
Well, I've seen posts for like the Red for Ed stuff where, you know, teachers are posting like how much they're spending at Target or, you know, Tuesday morning or whatever on school supplies. And, you know, as someone who, I don't have kids, but I just assume that was all provided by the school.
Yeah, and you know, and every school is different. I think because of my experience, you know, we make it a priority to make sure that does not happen. We don't want our teachers out there spending thousands of dollars at Target or anywhere else. So any donations that people can give to the school in terms of supplies is always really helpful.
Sure.
We'll stock our supply room towards the beginning of the year usually because that's when you're doing those types of drives, and then we'll use those supplies as we need them throughout the year. So teachers are never short on pencils, never short on paper, that kind of thing.
So where can people find out more information about CASA Academy and the great work that you guys are doing here?
Yeah, definitely. So you can visit our website, so casaacademy.org, or you can visit us on our Facebook page. We like to post lots of fun videos, pictures of scholars, staff members. There's all kinds of good stuff up on our page. We recently, let me see here, last Thursday had our Meet the Teacher night. So it was great seeing all of our returning families and meeting new families. So there's a ton of pictures of all of our families and our teachers meeting them that night. So definitely check it out on
Awesome.
our Facebook page.
Well, thank you so much for the time today, Tacey. I really appreciate it. You guys are doing wonderful work here. I've had an opportunity to meet a lot of your scholars and teachers, and you guys are just doing amazing stuff here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. This was another edition of Danny Brown Talks Phoenix, and we will see you next time.